Well, thanks very much. I know we're at the end of a long day, so I'll try and keep this brief, but share with you what's going on here in Chicago with at least one, if not more, of the national quantum information centers. So looking at the participants here, it seemed to me that it might be useful just in a couple of slides to give you a sense of what is the Department of Energy, since many of you from the finance world may or may not be familiar with the fact that its mission is to ensure the U.S. security and prosperity by dealing with energy, environmental, and nuclear challenges through science. And the structure of this Department of Energy is what's on the right. It's the Secretary of Energy, of course, and 3 offices underneath, one of which is the Office of Science. And that's what we're going to focus on today, and that's where these centers sit. Now, to give you a sense of the scale, the Office of Science is arguably the largest contributor to basic science in the country. In fiscal year 2020, it has a $7 billion budget to give you a scale of the operation. And it's these different areas that you see in the squares here, which sit underneath the Office of Science. And the quantum science centers fall underneath the Advanced Scientific Computing Research arm. While different parts of the Office of Science do contribute to these national centers, largely the organization is done through that, basic energy sciences, even biological and environmental research, as well as high energy physics. So it's a large organization, but it's been centralized in a way to deal with the national QIS centers. So that's my Department of Energy 101. And let's get to the centers. So it's been a long path to get here, but once they were launched, that is, the process for a national program was launched, things moved very quickly. So just to set a timeline, in December of 2018, just a few days before Christmas, the US President signed the National Quantum Initiative Act, which, as part of the act, established funds for national QIS research centers. A few months later, in 2019, the Department of Energy launched a request for information from the community as to how these should be run and what topics they should cover. In January 2020, there was a formal announcement for proposals. And in August of this year, the final decisions were made. So on the scale of government organizations, this was quite rapid. There was a pretty quick pathway for a $625 million program over the first 5 years. And these centers are expected to last 10 years, but the first phase is $625 million. The announcements came out on August 26th, and the acts were designed to fund between 2 and 5 national centers. And in the end, the Department of Energy decided to fund 5 across the United States, all being led by their national labs. And what's interesting about being in the Chicago area is that 2 of the 5 centers are here. One run by Argonne National Laboratory and the other by Fermi National Laboratory. The Fermi Lab Center is focusing on superconducting quantum materials and systems. Ours is focusing on next generation quantum science and engineering. And I think what's of importance here is to recognize that the Department of Energy is in this for the long game. They expect these to run for a decade. They want them to have significant national impact. They want them to attract major challenges in the field to drive science and technology. They want these centers to bring in the entire innovation chain, meaning basic science to industry, and develop stewardship of an entire ecosystem, meaning materials, devices, applications, systems, and how it couples to the economy. So I'm going to talk to you about one of them today, which keeps this in mind. They expect this to be well into the next few decades as a field with national impact, particularly in the economy. It covers both supercomputing and quantum information science, and they want to engage the entire community, which means all of you, in this session today. So let me talk about the one here in Argonne National Lab, because it's very special in a way that it's been a center designed to engage industry at every possible level, and in fact, it's run jointly with industry. So it's quite a unique design and something very special to the Department of Energy. So in just a slide, to give you a sense of where we are, the center was awarded $115 million in DOE funding over 5 years. And as a measure of the enthusiasm from our industrial partners, it was matched by another $93 million from industry and university partners together. So this is the largest match of all the DOE centers, and in fact, the largest compared to combining all the other centers. So it's an exciting moment for us. And in the first 100 days for the center, we are setting up government structures, but also launching some 4 major efforts in the first 9 months. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it because you'll see that there are obviously strong ties with industry here. The first is to build the National Quantum Foundries, which is a type of quantum factory to provide materials and device platforms for industry and industrial partners, and also to provide these materials for the other DOE centers to help them meet their goals. This is something lacking right now in the United States. Where do companies get quantum materials with quantum coherent properties for their technologies? We also want to work with the Quantum Economic Development Consortium to develop a national roadmap for quantum entangled technologies, very much like Semitech did for the nanoelectronics industry. Try to identify where the major challenges are and try and get ahead of them over a long timeline. And do this together in a type of live document that will change, but doing it hand in hand with industry. We're initiating a suite of workforce development programs, particularly at the undergraduate, graduate, and postdoctoral level. And we're setting the groundwork to launch our science and technology project this coming summer. So the theme of the center here in Chicago, we believe, cuts across one of the most prominent challenges of the field. If you're going to build quantum systems, whether they're arrays of sensors, secure communication platforms, or supercomputing platforms with quantum machines, you need to be able to manipulate and interconnect entangled states of matter, a type of quantum wiring. And as Jim Clark at Intel is very fond of saying, it's a little bit like with quantum bits, owning very fast cars, but not having the roads. How do you get from one place to another quantum mechanically? And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to deliver these quantum interconnects and establish a national resource for companies, universities, and national labs to build this technology. So that means we need to build the materials, but also use atomic scale characterization tools to be sure these materials behave the way they should. And this is just to be clear, this is an unprecedented demand for technology. We need to know where every atom is and how that atom interacts with the atoms around it. And fortunately, the national labs in the United States are the stewards of these tools, synchrotrons, right? Experimental techniques that give atomic and subatomic resolution down to the level of individual electrons and atoms. So we want to integrate these quantum states in devices that will work well and robustly and reproducibly. And we want to develop the appropriate algorithms and system architectures and test beds to let people come and start to play with these things in a very open access form. That's the point of the center. Now, who's involved with the one here in Illinois in the Chicago area? There are 3 national laboratories, 10 universities, and 10 initial industry partners, with several more queued up to join the center. So from industry, our partners include IBM and Intel, Microsoft, Applied Materials, HRL Laboratories, Boeing, General Atomics in Southern California, and companies like Keysight and Quantum Opus and Cold Quanta. The universities that are working with, of course, the University of Chicago, the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, University of Wisconsin-Madison, Northwestern, and Cornell University, Penn State, and of course, Stanford. So SLAC is our strong co-partner here as one of the 3 national laboratories. Joanne Hewitt is our co-director, who's a theoretical physicist at SLAC and at Stanford. And they've been working very hard with us to develop this proposal, as well as colleagues at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Washington. So it's an integrated center, and it has industrial engagement at every level. And you can see we're across the United States in terms of partners. So I don't want to get into the weeds here, but the reason I wanted to show you the way this center is built is it's very unique for a federal center. The center reports to the director of Argonne, which gives you a sense of its importance to the laboratory. But our science advisory committee is actually chaired by a researcher at IBM, Jay Gambetta, who runs the quantum program at IBM Laboratories and is a fellow at IBM Research. And so this science and technology committee will help advise us to make sure we're We're meeting our goals along with a governance committee that's formed of all the institutional members to be sure they have a say in what we're doing and how we're moving. And like any company, we have a CTO and a COO. Suprati Guha, our Chief Technology Officer, also developed the roadmap for the quantum computing program at IBM. So he's going to help us with that. And we have technology integration managers, people that will look at the science, work out the IP issues, and make sure we can transfer the discovery-driven science rapidly to technology. So the last thing I want to say is, if you look at the purple part of this chart and below, it lists 6 different thrust areas. 3 vertical thrusts, which are our science and technology themes, and 3 cross-cutting horizontal thrusts, which drive these themes through the foundries, extreme scale characterization, and quantum simulation and systems. But the thing to walk away from this is to realize what's rather unique here is that the managers of each of these thrusts include people from national labs, from industry, but also from universities. So every one of these parts of our center has an industrial co-lead to make sure that there's an industrial presence in every level of the center. So if you look through this chart, there are industrial members in all of them, from our science committee to our managers. So I mentioned again that we have 10 companies that alone have contributed almost $62 million in matching funds. And one interesting thing about this center arrangement is that all of our companies agreed on a common IT plan. So for many of you that do interactions with industry, and those of you in industry, of course, you know that one of the secret sauces to success here is to be sure that IP is worked out well in advance. And we worked out a plan that allows companies to use the IP, but also allows the IP to be shared amongst its members. So it's a model that we've used that, again, has followed other industrial collaborative programs. And as a measure of the success of this IP agreement, every company signed it without change. So all 10 of them. Now, admittedly, one company wasn't so thrilled with it, but in the end, it worked out pretty well. The other thing I wanted to mention is we have a very aggressive workforce development program aiming to train a quantum-ready workforce through strong internships and degree partnerships with industry, where students will do their PhDs jointly in industrial laboratories, which includes the full span of organizations, from financial companies to technology companies. As sort of a throwback to the old co-op programs, these students will work with pairs of advisors, one in a company or a national lab, and one at a university. So we think this is a way that industry can really help accelerate and amplify the programs of training to increase the workforce needs, which are pretty daunting in this field when you look at the numbers. Everybody will work towards the roadmap, and we also have a program to incentivize startups using the Chain Reaction Innovation Program at Argonne, SBIR initiatives, the Energy I-Corps, and some new efforts that will be announced in the next month to accelerate the quantum technologies to the marketplace. This is something that's also of tantamount importance to the Department of Energy. So, you know, in short, our approach is to fund projects, not people, and we're looking for projects with companies and with the financial sector. So it's been interesting to hear some of the things discussed today where there are clear connections, and we're working to make even more to try and use this vehicle, use this research as a vehicle to help drive the applications, and also look for challenges in meeting these applications. A concern that a lot of us have is there's a lot of hype in this field, and it's really important to separate the science and technology, what's realistic in the first 5 years, from where you would like to be a decade or two down the line. And finally, I want to mention that one of the exciting aspects of the QNX Center is we're going to host the Intel testbed, which is the first of its type solid-state scalable quantum processor testbed. At least that's our hope. As a full-stack quantum machine, from algorithms to chips, working in concert very closely with people in Hillsboro at Intel to develop a silicon-based, spin-based machine using the same chips here at the Argonne testbed, and open this up as a research and demonstration facility for the nation. And this is something that's currently being built right now at Argonne National Labs. So finally, We have resources that we'd like to invite all of you to use. I know many of you have also been engaged and are currently working with us to develop and expand the Argonne Quantum Loop, which is a quantum communications testbed, which is a 52-mile optical link running through the northwest suburbs of Chicago as a way to look at entanglement distribution and to serve as a basis for a larger network that will be extended to Chicago and to other parts of the state. It's designed to be a plug-and-play system where you can bring in your technology to any of the nodes, plug in, and begin to look at everything from quantum key distribution to the fidelity of entangled states as they propagate in a real-world environment outside of a laboratory, but in the winters of Chicago, where temperature changes can change optical fiber lengths, allows us to check synchronization techniques and protocols, and really be sure that you can build meaningful, secure communication systems using existing dark fibers in the country. And finally, our road mapping. So I can't say strongly enough how important this is to hit a national objective, to codify a 10-year outlook for an entangled technology that covers sensing, communication, and computing. So this roadmap, again, learning from Sematech and other organizations, will be developed and maintained through periodic workshops with industry, all center members, and external leaders in quantum science, both in the United States and abroad. We'll adjust these as needed based on the information we get and provide this to the community to help align our vision with what the needs are in the field and make sure that we can deliver. And those of you who may be interested in joining this exercise, you're more than welcome to do so. It's a very ambitious endeavor, and we have many, many companies already signed up to help us with this. So let me stop there. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk to you about the center, and I'll turn it back over to you.